Welcome, everybody. This is Activities Across Grade Levels. And, if you have caught some of our other episodes, you've been like, hey, wow, they share a lot of stuff. We're going to set a record. We're going to set a record today. We have got a ton of good stuff in our Explore the World piece. So if you love like traveling or maps or anything like this is going to be a time to be thankful you are here. And speaking of being thankful to Fowler USD, all right, thank you, Susan, and your team for being a part of this. Big thank you out to Richard Byrne and all the good work he does with Free Tech for Teachers. We have another gig coming up tomorrow on the Free Tech for Teachers front, so I hope you'll join in. I want to give a shout out to my Fall City Academy team that's out there as well, with whom I met yesterday, and we shared all kinds of good things. Now, it is good to see you. Here are we. Susan, go ahead and say hey.
So hello, yes, my name is Susan Stewart. I'm an instructional technology teacher on special assignment from the Central California area. I'm in Fowler Unified, which is in the Fresno area. I spent 14 years as a K-2 teacher, teaching kindergarten and second grade. And now I'm in my 7th year as a TOSA, and I get to support teachers through their digital instruction. Now we've made this huge shift to learning through computers. And it's been a really exciting time to support my team through this new learning environment.
Very cool. And those teachers get to work with you as well, which is pretty nice for sure. My name is Rushton, and that is the peanutizeme.com version of me. Several important facts about me. I'm a former high school teacher. I'm a former principal of a K-12 school, former online high school principal. I run a little nonprofit, and as I like to say, I married up. There you go. So I run a little shindig called Next Vista for Learning. It's a library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere. So feel free to give that a good look as we go along. You're going to find videos in there about creative ways of thinking about things that kids encounter in school. You'll find videos about communities around the world, about service to others, careers, English for those learning English. Lots of good stuff for you. Please do check that stuff out. All right, so our goal is to keep learning going, right? And we think that if we get together and we share creative ideas about how to make those assignments meaningful, we all are better off and kids benefit. And so that's what we're doing today. We're going to do this through 4 different age groups. We're going to start with the youngest learners, all right? So our young scholars, and then we'll go to upper elementary, middle school, and high school. So get ready, fasten your seatbelt, and here we go to explore the world. Good fun. All right. So young learners, Susan, get us started with the young learners.
Right. So when we start talking about young learners, the reality is that our kids don't understand much past the tip of their own nose, right? When you think about child development and their understanding of the world, by nature, those spheres of influence grow as they age. And so when we start talking about faraway places, they don't actually have the context to understand different places. So some of these tools we'll talk about are ways to build some of that global perspective. And that's a word I've heard lots of times, that word global learners. What does that even mean? It really is talking about giving children that connection to the world, understand the geographic parts of it, as well as the human parts of it, how to connect with others and beyond just their own space, beyond themselves. So one way we like to do that is we can use pictures, right? We can use a tool like remove.bg, and I'm going to have you go ahead and advance through this, Rushton, because I think it makes a whole lot more sense here. Let's talk about this. Our learners were talking about Antarctica, and that's a place, and they were studying penguins, and it seems like a silly fun thing until this happens. Another student looks over there and says, if you were really in Antarctica, you would not be wearing shorts, right? Suddenly it became real to him. By taking this silly little picture, when we were studying about Antarctica, they could talk about, oh, how would you feel if you're there? Oh, you'd be very cold, right? So giving them some of that context or understanding to start learning beyond themselves. Oh, that's where I am. I'm wearing shorts because it's warm right now. But in another place, in Antarctica, where the penguins are, it's going to be super chilly. So just, again, some realistic understandings of places that are different from the place I'm in. Also, we can use a tool called Google My Maps. In My Maps, we can start developing that geographic context as well. So a story here, it's called How to Make Apple Pie and See the World. And I love this book because in the story, a little girl soars around the world gathering ingredients for her apple pie. First, she goes to Vermont to get her apples. And then she goes to Jamaica to get some sugar cane. And then they jump over to Sri Lanka to get their cinnamon. Let me be honest. The first 2 or 3 times I taught this text, I had no idea where Sri Lanka was, right? I opened up a map and had to go find it. Well, if I'm going to open a map, I might as well bring the kids along for the adventure. So a tool like Google My Maps allows me to customize all those little pins, all those little colorful dots there. Actually, in the live version, Rushton, if you click right on it, but wait, there's more. So I can click on the map itself. Oop, back one screen, click on the map itself, and it should take you out to a live My Map. And what happens here, ooh, look at all these fun little pins. Let's go ahead and click on Sri Lanka. I can mark the pins and even embed images to support that vocabulary. So I see the picture of the cinnamon, I see where Sri Lanka is. I go, oh, that's really far from where we live, isn't it? And then we can talk about how Vermont and the apples are a little closer to where we are. So just giving some context and perspective for the things we do, right? I think about characters in text all the time. Jack and Annie and the Magic Tree House, they soar all around the world. Do your kids really know much about where they're going, right? Do they have that context and perspective of the world? So using a tool like this when we're reading allows us to just further just develop their understanding of the world. And of course, continuing on to the next slide, once we use Google My Maps. My Maps is fun because we can interact with it, but we can also go to good old-fashioned Google Earth. That is our community of Fowler, California. And you can see the land really is like that. People have assumptions about California that it's all beaches and sunshine, but you see all those lands, it's from our farms. And that is our tiny little rural farming community out in the middle of California. And kids, you know, a lot of adults too, when you load up a map in front of adult, most of the time, you know what they do? They try to find where they're from. So learning me on the map, understanding my place in the world. So here's my town, here's my school, here's where I get pizza. That's a good way because we can want to expand those spheres of influence, right? So starting with me on the map, Google Earth lets me click on that. But then of course I can go all kinds of other amazing places as well. We start where we are and then we can go beyond. Right, so this will load up Google Earth and it'll take you to an interactive version. We don't need to do that right now, but just know that it definitely is things. You know, in first grade, we spend a lot of time talking about the symbols of the United States. We talk about the monuments, we talk about the places, and we can talk about them and look at them in books like for days. We can look at all the pictures in the books. But what I love about Google Earth is it lets me take the kids there. You know, especially now in this world where we're not even together. I don't even get to hold the books up for them to see. What if I could take them on a quick little tour of the Statue of Liberty, spin around, look at the buildings, kind of give them some context. A lot of times I think of this like, in your mind, picture the Taj Mahal. Can you picture it right now? Like picture what it looks like. You probably have this iconic vision of some turrets and some tall, like, have you ever stopped to wonder when you're standing there staring at the beauty that is the Taj Mahal or the Statue of Liberty, you're looking at it, you ever think about what's around you? Like what's behind you? If you're looking at the Taj Mahal, what's back here? Right? Tools like Google Earth allows us to see beyond just those iconic places. We can see them in their space, in their context. And our young learners love this stuff. So Google Earth is a really fun way to start developing that global perspective.
There was a really nice comment in the chat from Michael Williams about maps of historical spots, you know, things like this, talking about videos and books connected to that spot, things like that, like with Gettysburg, you can get audio. But he also mentioned that if kids have family members and friends in different places, you can build a My Maps that allow you to connect those pieces of the world with people you know.
A couple years ago, I had a first grade teacher who, on the very first day of school, she dropped a pin at our school. It's called Marshall Elementary School. And she dropped a pin, and this is, you know, room 15, and this is our place. And then throughout the year, every time they went somewhere in text, they learned about somewhere, they visited somewhere, they read a book about someone, they kept dropping pins. And would you believe by the end of the year, those, you know, 22 kids in first grade in this teeny tiny rural farming community in Central California, they'd been like 150 places in text. And they had this visual record using My Maps of all the places they traveled during the world, or during the year. So very, very cool. Yes, Google Lick Trips is another example, absolutely. And so, you know, going up a little bit, again, child development, our spheres of influence, our understanding of the world grows too. So we can go a little bit further when we're talking about the upper grade learners. You know, I mentioned that idea of global learning. What is global learning? Understanding beyond your own space, learning outside of the walls in the classroom. Well, we're all kind of global learners right now, right? We're all learning beyond the classroom. Who would have thought we would find ourselves in this situation where we're learning beyond the four walls? So in my district, sometimes I'll do collaborative activities because people say global learning and you're like, oh, does that mean I need to talk to a class in Africa? you know, like, do I need to start there? You don't have to go that big to start. Sometimes global learning just might be a class down the hall, and sometimes global learning might be across your district. So some examples I'm going to show is how do we build that global learning beyond the classroom. So Grid Pals, if you haven't used Flipgrid yet, Grid Pals is a tool that connects kids from different parts of the world so that they could be Grid Pals. So it's almost like Pen Pals, but using videos. So Grid Pals is a great way to do that. And go ahead and turn the page one more time. In my own district, these are some kids. And we do our own little global learning project just like this, where everyone in the district collaborates in one place. So kids love this because they see kids from other schools, they see their siblings that go to the older schools, but we collaborate. And that's the foundation of global learning, is connecting beyond the classroom. But now that we're all in different places, we're using the global learning tools to come together in one space. So it's been really, really fun to experience things like Flipgrid as a way to, you know, meet with people outside and now come back together now that we're in those different places. One of my principals, she's using this as her spirit days for Fridays. She posted a question like, Furry Friend Friday was last week, and all of the kids took pictures of either their stuffed animals or their pets, and it was this collaboration from all over the, not globe, but the town, right? And we're able to come together. So Grid Pals is typically designed to have us connect to the world, but right now we're just even connecting to each other. So really fun way to explore the world and just to connect to people beyond our space. And then going a little bit further, going back to my maps, in the beginning, I, as the teacher, was doing the mind map. With the young learners, I might have been driving, right? They could tell me what to put, but I might not have let them click as much. In this example, every student in the class went and made their own pin, talking about their ancestry. Where did they come from? What are some of the traditions? And so people went and they dropped a pin where their family was from, and they included photographs of maybe the kinds of cultural things that you know are representative of that. Maybe it was a flag, maybe it was a food or a song. So it's a great way to collaborate. And each one of those pins represented a different student in the class. And those middle learners, those third and fourth graders, were able to collaborate and using Google My Maps, really see where we all come from. When we start understanding people from different places, you know, building compassion, finding the similarities, recognizing the differences, that's how we make the world a better place. Right, Rushton?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I am excited about some of the next things that you're going to talk about too. You got some cool history connections going on with this.
Yeah, so in this one, you know, we read text all the time and we want kids to connect to text. We did this one here. The kids retold a biography. So they read this text about Barack Obama and they had to go find all the important places in his life. And so they retold, born in Hawaii. I know some people might say that somewhere else in the world, but he was born in Hawaii, where he went to college, where he was the junior senator, when he lived in the White House, retelling a person's life, almost like a timeline using geography. So that's one that the fifth graders were able to do very easily because they just dropped a pin and noted what was the significance of that. It's a really good way to retell an informational text. Oh no, my video broke. Oh goodness.
Maybe, should we try it out?
Try it out. Yeah, it looks like.
Denied. Okay. Oops.
So that's okay. You know what? I can give you a little tour of what it is. These are all little examples of how we can use the ports. I played it too. That's so different. No, we're not. This is what we do. Woo! Right? Ports is the Park Online California Parks. They are giving regular field trips to the parks. We've got kids who are cooped up at home. Their website has regular daily field trips to the different places in California where you've got your park rangers who are talking about the different parks. They're leading tours and just talking about the importance of taking care of our parks and conservation. And it's been a really great resource, but they'll do that in your class right now. We can go to them right now. They have a calendar on their website of all day long, tour after field trip after field trip. We can take these virtual field trips right now so kids can leave their house a little bit using the Parks Online resources. There was an example there, but it really is a great way that they can talk to the park rangers through the Ports program.
And we can get that link fixed as well. All of you who are watching this either live or as a recording, there's a link on our webinars page to the slides, so you can get back to these pieces that way. Again, all kinds of ways to get you there, no problem at all. Let's take things up to middle school. All right, so in middle school, what are we going to do to get kids exploring the world? One of my favorites is a thing called Maps Treks, right? Now, this is one of those things that Google put together And it's really, really kind of interesting. There's all these kind of different places, about 24 of them or so, you know, and the stories that are there, the artwork that's a part of this one is my favorite, the Kumbu, right? And by going there, you can say, okay, well, I want to check this area out. And it starts with a little video. In this case, it starts with a video. They don't all start this way. But this particular video I especially love because there's no dialogue at all. It's all just stuff that you're seeing as you go. And all of these things, there are these communities so that you can see these different places. You can go into like little places in the community, see the video, the images that are a part of it as well. Try to begin thinking, what is life like in that place? What does it mean to be, 10,000 feet up, or whatever it might be? What is it that's different about that world? Why are the paintings different? Why are the walls different? What are they doing when they look like they're praying that's different than people like in our area when they do this as well? There are so many good questions that come from visuals. And so having that opportunity to look at different places and to begin thinking, what are those animals, right? Like what do we know about those animals? How do the animals handle being up there? Things like that. What is it about this guy? And what about the Canadian, little flag on his jacket? What's happening with that? These are moments where kids get a chance to really begin to understand something different about the world around them. And as you keep going, you begin to say, all right, well, I want to check this out. I'm going to check out the bazaar right here. And he comes in, you say, all right, I want to look at this place right here, the yak parking lot. Because don't we all need a yak parking lot, right? Well, what does that mean, right? What does it mean really? Does that mean they don't have cars, they have yaks? I mean, what does that mean? And so really getting to explore that is something good fun. I'm a big fan of maps treks. Another thing that I quite like is the stuff that comes from photo contests. So Agora Images did this one called Work 2020 or hashtag Work 2020. And oh my goodness, the images that you find in these in these contests can be just stunning. Like look at this one from Vietnam, that was taken from above, and these two women gathering flowers, for their boats, things like this. This is the kind of stuff that yields much better discussions than do you know where Vietnam is, right? Well, there's lots of different things that are a part of the stories. So there are these short written pieces that are part of it as well. And you can begin asking, what is it that these people face? So Greenville, USA, where is this place? Can we look it up? Can we find out how many Greenvilles there are in the United States? What does it mean to be a firefighter, right? Go on, oyster harvest in the UK. And sometimes the angles on these photos are so interesting in terms of how you begin to say, oh wait, that's a tractor. What does that do for us? This one, where you have these people like cleaning the side of a building is something that for your more artsy students really begin to take notice, like, wow, because this captures the imagination in some great ways. For exploring the world, there's a load of good videos out there, right? And I've got a whole slew that I will stick into the chat and make sure that are in the links that you can get to. But in looking at these, I picked one that I thought was kind of fun. This one is actually one from Japan about pounding mochi. And if you've never had mochi, you're missing out. Mochi is great fun, but there's a way to get there. And so that'll capture your kid's attention. And so it turns out that mochi is like pounded sweet rice, right? And it's a New Year's treat and all of these cool things that are part of that. I actually have been a part of something like that before. And where it was New Year's Day, and I went with some friends out to this little temple, near the town where I was living in Japan, and we got a chance to pound mochi as a part of like what we were doing. It's an activity. What are the activities that happen in your community? What does your family do at different times of the year? Those questions are the ones that kind of get us moving along. So as you look at these different pieces and you come back to the slides, feel free to follow the links either from the first slide or these second ones. You can get there a lot of different ways. High schoolers. All right, well, with high schoolers, we want to take this up a notch, in terms of the intellectual challenge as part of it. And I love Air Pano. If you have never looked at Air Pano, get ready for a treat. What these are these panoramic views of these different places, right? And so you get to do a lot of kind of 360-degree images and videos as well. And you get a chance to really look around. This is a place called Fenghuang. And I didn't know there was such a place, honestly. And so, you know, you can say, okay, well, I want to come in a bit. I want to go down there. They've got these different pieces around here that you can navigate in several different ways. If you like the music, great. If you're like, wait, that's drowning me out, then you can do that as well. But beautiful, beautiful areas that you may never have heard of that are a part of these different places around the world. And so what does it mean to live here? What would you do? Like, you know, if you were working here, what would your job be? You know, how do you see the world that way? So loads of good stuff at AirPano. And of course, Google Street View and Voyager, some really good things. This is like right in line with what we were talking about before, like with Susan. But if you've never kind of looked at Voyager, you want to get in and see the different things that they've got all set up. So you can say, well, celebrating Harry Potter, what does that mean? Well, if you click on it, what it does is it say, let's start exploring. And there are these different places around the world that have something to do with Harry Potter. And that includes the Wizarding World in Florida, but also these different places in England where, you know, come up in the stories, and look, platform 9 3/4, and where would we be right now? You know, what's the name of that station? You know, so it turns out that you know, if you're at King's Cross, this is actually what you find right now. So you know, there's just a lot of fun that comes from seeing these things in ways that are different from the movies that you've seen or whatever else. So you can begin to stop and say, wow, you know, like that actually looks a lot like this place in town. All right, well, tell me more about that. What would be different about being there? And to begin working on ideas of like, well, what if I moved these characters into other settings? You know, what if they were in the Khumbu in Nepal? You know, like what would that look like? And getting the creative writing possibilities that are part of that just kind of go on and on. There's also a link in here for 15 favorites from like Street View that are a part of how the Google Geo team does its blog, right? And they found these really cool ones. So feel free to click on that. And then there was this article from the BBC I thought I'd include as well. So BBC News, and what it says, okay, so coronavirus, the slowdown in the United States seen from space. All right, well, what does that mean? Well, there are these sliders, right? And so I click on this slider in the middle, and I pull it to the left, and suddenly I'm seeing like traffic just kind of disappear as I do this. You know, here's Denver's airport, and you know, look at the cars in the parking lot from the 7th of March, and then on the 24th of March, right? So this is attention grabbing stuff. You can't teach a kid squat unless you grab their attention. And so finding, you know, the kinds of things that allow them to begin to see some of these as they go as well. Shipping containers, you know, so here's on the 17th of March, there's on the 8th of February. So lots of interesting points of departure for how these things work. So I'm gonna give these guys a look as well. Lots of cool material there. With the promising resources, there's several that I want to just mention to you real quick because we are fast closing in on the tail end of our time, and we also want to give you guys a chance to ask questions if you have them. One is in the virtual field trip realm, there is this Explore by the Seat of Your Pants, and the Canadian Space Agency has done all of these kind of cool pieces that have these lessons for teachers, have speakers, you know, that coming up, and if you scroll down that page, you begin to find that they have stuff that are coming up like in the coming days, right? So you come down a bit and you say, okay, well, what's going on? April 16th, explore Paul Rose, expedition leader. All right, Toronto Zoo, right on the 16th. This is also the 16th. So there's like all of these different things happening, like great content for kids that you can begin to look at and say, well, you know, let's get things involved. And then it'll show you the different places from which they've had speakers, things like that. The Google Earth VR site. So, you know, when you click on that one, you might need a Dramamine. I mean, it's just like woo, moving around, but if you're into VR and its possibilities, then make sure you bookmark that one because it's one where you can get lots of cool possibilities in motion there. And then finally, the World Data Atlas. Okay, this requires a signing. You have to sign up, that kind of thing. But tons and tons of good information for like stats classes, science classes, geography classes. Loads and loads of material that you can work with there. And it's pulled from a lot of different sources from around the internet. So a lot of good content there. Susan, anything you want to add to any of those, actually? Unmute.
Well, I wanted to tell you that I did fix that video. So the ports program, I can't tell you much. Like those park rangers have become YouTube stars. Like, it's creative and it's engaging, it's fun. So I'll just throw ports back out there yet, because it is so, so wonderful. But all of these things, like the Earth VR, if you haven't had a chance to get into some of those VR glasses, now I know we can have those in our classrooms sometimes, but sometimes your kids already have stuff like that at home for their video games and stuff. So anything that gives them the opportunity to get into that, you know, those get into the world, see it, really, really great. I love taking first graders, you know, things like the VR tools. I'll take a set of 3 or 4 into a classroom, because we may not necessarily need one for every kiddo, and we'll just put it in like a center with our young learners. And so we give them that opportunity to get inside with the goggles and that. And that's not something we can do right now. But as we talk about just building that world global context, it really is fun to give them some of those VR experiences where they step into it, like just step into it, and they have that experience. Very, very cool stuff.
Yeah, I like that so much is out there, right? You know, like this is a time when, as teachers, we need to be connecting with each other and finding out what they're finding. You know, we don't all need to reinvent the wheel, right? We need to just get together and share cool ideas about what's available and what you're trying and how's that working with the kids, and did it really work well for some kid who needed something a little different, and those kinds of questions. Because when it comes down to it, our job is to care, right? You know, we care about the kids, we care about their learning. We're working to get them excited about their possibilities, whether in person or online. And is it different now? Well, sure, it is. On the other hand, it hasn't changed what we do. And in order to do it well, we care for ourselves. That's a part of what we are called to be as educators, people who work to be creative and bring a certain kind of energy to possibilities that kids need in order to be inspired. And so I hope that that's a part of how you think about the work you do as an educator as well. Some quick plugs. First of all, my little nonprofit has a newsletter that I send out once a month. Lots and lots of good content there for you. Just because you may not have time to go find a bunch of stuff, I find it for you. You're so nice.
You're so
Happy
nice.
to help. Right. There are also contests we got going on. So Creative Strength is our 90-second video contest. That's happening right now, and kids can do that. Service via video is going on. So tell in 2 minutes or less about people who do good for others. And tomorrow afternoon, early evening, East Coast time, we're going to do a webinar about how to go about that, even if you're stuck at home, right? So there's a service webinar tomorrow. Get involved, sign up for that, join in. It's going to be good fun. We did one this morning on careers. So careers video projects for kids who are looking for something a little different to get engaged in their learning. I have a blog called Inspiring Improvement. I hope that that's something you'll take a look at. Plenty of pieces there that I think might be the kind of thing that raises an eyebrow for you, gives you a cool idea, you know, 1 or 2, and hopefully you walk away from that like, all right, that was 90 seconds well spent. I've written books, so feel free to check out the writing that I've done. I hope that you'll find that the kind of stuff I write about is stuff that inspires you in some fashion or another. And if you have questions, toss them in, because we've got time for 1 or 2 as before we finish things up. And so Susan, when we think about the questions that we're getting from people here and from the people we work with, anything that's kind of stood out for you in the last few days?
Really, it is that. It's that, we're so far apart, but it does give us this new lens into our lives, like learning at home.
Mm-hmm.
With our young learners, especially taking advantage of where you are. Maybe that's the little geographic piece, but just knowing that learning happens. How can we use that place they're in now? Mm-hmm. So something simple, like I mentioned Furry Friend Friday, right? We're taking advantage of where they are right now. How could we use that? Go find your favorite toy, go find your favorite book, bringing their life into it. And we have to be a little bit careful with that sometimes, but I think just, something as simple as a Google Meet is really a good way we're learning globally, because we're not all in one place. So just giving them, context into each other's lives by bringing in the puppy dog, right? Those are things that kids are engaged with. It's a part of their world that they don't usually get to share with us. So it does bring the learning beyond the 4 walls of the classroom, because that's where we are right now. We're not in 4 walls. We're in walls everywhere. So unique time of learning, but really getting connected. I really appreciate the opportunities for us to try those new things and connect our kids in all kinds of unique ways.
Yeah. So I was talking with Sean and his team yesterday, his team in Jerome, Fall City Academy. And they were talking about the value of connecting with kids in different ways. And one of them talked about how in calling to check in on these kids who might not be doing as much at the moment or anything like that. They're connecting with the families, right? You know, they're talking to a parent who's turning the kid and saying, "You told me something different," you know, and moments like that can be pretty good, right? Because not only is the kid kind of caught, but it's also a chance for both the teacher and the parent to stop and say, "That was the past. This is now. Let's see what you can do." Because if we can figure out what it is that's really exciting to you about the learning and to move that forward, then all of us are going to be in better shape. So if you don't like what we're doing, you tell me, like, I would rather learn it this way. And I'm happy to experiment with you because we're doing a whole lot of experimenting with how learning can work right now. So some last thoughts from each of us. Susan?
I just wanted to thank, I had a couple of my teachers in there. I see Diana. Hi, Diana. I'm so excited to see some of my friends here in the chat visiting. Please feel free to reach out. You know, Tech Coach Susan on the Twitter. You can find me. And of course, my fellow teachers, you know exactly where to find me. And I'd love to continue talking about, you know, young learners and how we can connect them. That hashtag K2Can2, if you look up on social media, you find that hashtag. People around the globe are sharing about what little learners can do. So that hashtag is kind of a global connection in ways too, because people from everywhere who have that common idea, that common interest in celebrating young learners, use a hashtag. So a global connection through the hashtag K2Can2. Go ahead and follow that, check it out, and you can see what other people are sharing.
Peggy's curious if that's Glacier Park in your background.
Oh, so this is Lake Moraine in the Canadian Rockies, just outside of Canmore. So we had a summit there not too long. This morning I was working with some Canadian educators, so I went ahead and brought this picture up in their honor.
A good choice for sure. I think it was last Friday when Jesse Lubinsky joined me for the 2 Ed Tech guys. It was actually 3 Ed Tech folks because Holly Clark was part of it as well. But he shared like a bunch of Zoom backgrounds that were really cool. I'll get that link in our doc that has all the links. So on the webinar page, I'll write you guys today. And when I say, you know, go to this page for those things, just go to where the recording is, and there'll be a link to the slides and a link to all the links, and we'll get that in as well, because I figure I need to add my like Millennium Falcon about go into hyperdrive piece, you know, as a part of what I do normally. You know, just saying. And so, thank you very much for taking part in what we got going today. I hope that you'll find these webinars to be something useful to you, that you'll share with others, you know, kind of what it is you see that's interesting. Now is the time for us to be sharing ideas. You know, if we come out of this particular process and maybe it's shelter in place now and then not, or maybe it's a cycle that we're going to be going through for a while. We have to be prepared for these ideas. But we come out of it with a renewed attention to creative brainstorming with our colleagues. I think we'll all be personally and professionally more satisfied with what it is we do and experience. I'm going to finish up the recording. However, those of you who are on are with us at the moment, we'll keep answering questions. We'll keep tossing some ideas your way, get a few more things in the chat, stuff like that. And we're glad to keep talking with you. Everybody else, thank you for watching the recording, and we hope that you will sign up for a future webinar on the webinars page on xvista.org. Take care.